wasting time on settings you're unsure about. Start focusing on the configuration decisions that truly shape your workflow and protect you from costly mistakes. In this session, we'll walk through the key setups that control your operations: firm identifiers and EIN registration, user permissions and trustee rights, status workflows, and print defaults. Let's get it right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lacerte, Firm Administration and Setup. We have so much to go over today. This is such a fun thing for me to do. Here you can see all about me, and you don't care about any of that. The only thing you care about is to know that I have been using Lacerte since, let's see if I could get the year right, 1993. That makes me really old, and I started late in life, so I'm really old. But I will say that the reason I've used it for so long is because it is still hands down the best program out there. I've tried all the others. You get the phone calls every year. Oh, you need to try this, you need to look at that. None of them are as good as Lacerte. It's easy to input. It is comprehensive. It is always up to date. It is just the best software out there. So I highly recommend that you give it, really pay attention today, give it a shot, and you are going to love it once you learn how to use it. Now, just a disclaimer, this session is educational in nature, shouldn't be construed as tax advice. I don't really talk about anything, I think, in here that would be construed as tax advice, but just know that, all our clients are different, every situation is different, so I can't, know anything about your client to give you advice on specific clients, and so, it's really up to you to make those determinations. I'm here to teach you how to use Lacerte. All right. So these are the things that we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about EIN registration, firm identifiers, prepare information, manage and invite users, print settings, client letters and billing, and Lacerte menu. We're going to be in and out of Lacerte, so I might, sometimes I get ahead of myself when I'm showing you Lacerte, and then I come back to a slide that's like, I already did that. But, we'll get everything. I want to make sure I get everything covered and really comprehensively. So sometimes, as I said, I do get ahead of myself, and there might be a slide in there that already covers it. So just bear with me, but this is my way of making sure that we cover everything that we're supposed to cover in this webinar for you. Now, of course, our objective is that you'll be able to complete the steps required to set up Lacerte and confidently navigate the program. And, one of the things that I, sort of alluded to earlier is that, sometimes somebody will say, oh, well, Lacerte's too complicated. It doesn't do what I want. And, or I can't find something. Well, it's normally because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know that what Lacerte is capable of unless you go through all of these steps in setting it up, or at least looking at what your options are. And so this is, to me, is really important in that we're going to make sure that you can, navigate through the program, and then you are familiar with the setup. So let's talk about the EIN. Now, I'm going to actually look up on a piece of paper what the EIN is, because I always forget the exact, thing that it is. So it's a 6-digit tax ID number that's issued by the IRS, and it verifies that you have the right to use the IRS e-file system to prepare taxes for clients. And once it's issued, it's considered an authorized IRS e-file provider. That makes you authorized. So there is that. Now, you can see on the screen, you can have only one EIN per CAN, and you say, well, what the heck is a CAN? And that is our account number with Lacerte, or with Intuit, actually. And so you can only have one EIN per account, but that makes sense. Why would you want more than one per account? You really would have no need. So anyway, that's the first thing. The second thing is that DBA and addresses have to be as they appear on the EIN application. So, part of the steps for getting set up in Lacerte is that you have to send this application into Lacerte, and then they're going to make sure that it's all set up with the same address and the same firm name. And I mean the exact firm name. And that's the way you get the two talking to each other. Otherwise, you can cause a problem. So in other words, if I go in and change my name somewhere, and it's different on my EFIN and different on, that I'm giving Lacerte, then Lacerte won't change it, and they have to have that EFIN application saying that it's been changed. And I can tell you for myself that we changed our name a couple of years ago to become more generic, so the business didn't have my name in it, and that right there, I couldn't get them to sync up. And luckily, I was early before tax season, and I was able to get it changed. But it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be, because it just took more time. It wasn't that it was difficult on the Lacerte side or difficult even on the IRS side. It was just that I had to get the two together, and didn't realize how long it would take. So make sure that your EFIN application matches exactly what you're going to put in Lacerte. And just remember that what you put in Lacerte is what goes on the tax returns. So important to know. And again, if you change anything, make sure that you get the EFIN updated with the IRS, and that you then send it over to Lacerte or Intuit. Okay, so firm identifiers, and this is where we're going to talk about how to set up your firm. I'm going to show it here. You can see all these tabs on the top. I will move on to that, but I'm not going to show you my screen, because my screen has my company's information. No matter what, again, it's all tied together with my EFIN. So I'm going to have to, come here, and then I will move into Lacerte after that. So right now we see that on this screen, we have our customer number with Lacerte. We have the firm name, the federal ID, so that's our tax ID number with IRS. We have street address, city, state, zip code. Again, those have to match the EFIN. We want to put our telephone number in there, and our fax number if anybody has one, and an email address, because those are going to also be on the tax return, at least a portion of those things. Then we have our EFIN number, which goes on that second section, as you can see, where it says electronic filing. And we have our ERO contact. That is the person that is, they will contact if there is any problems, with the IRS or anything else. It is the electronic return originator, and it is authorized, that numbers or contact, is authorized by the IRS to the provider who originates the electronic submission of a return to the IRS. You can see I'm reading that because I want to make sure I have it exactly right. And then you want to put in a filing contact name also. So, and then if your ERO information is different from above, then you can check the little box and add in the correct information there. All right, let's go to the next slide. So these are the things that we just talked about. So we're going to skip there. And then this is prepare information. So this is the other thing that I can't share, because again, it is our information, my staff, myself, the information. So here you're going to put the name. You can see somebody put Mickey Mouse. We're going to put the phone number, and we're going to put, so this is, let's say for me, I'm going to have my social security number in there. If I was self-employed, I would check that little box because that's going to show up on the bottom of the tax return. And if I was not self-employed, I leave it blank. I'm going to put in my PTIN number. So the PTIN number is something, again, that you get from the IRS. It's the electronic PIN number that it's different for everybody. It's used as electronic signature of the preparer when filing an electronic return. And so, again, I read that to make sure it was exact. And then I'm going to put in an ERO PIN. So remember, we talked about what the ERO is, but if I want to have a PIN that I use for every client, I can put it there. If I want to use a different PIN for every client, I wouldn't put it there. I would just put it when I'm doing the tax return. And then I can have, if different from the ERO PIN, if I want to have a designee PIN, I can put it there. I'm going to put what type of designation. So I'm a CPA, it would say certified public accountant. If you were an EA, it would say EA. And so it would put in the different type of prepare. Now, it doesn't have to be a CPA or EA, because we have people that are not licensed that are doing input. And I want to know in, on the tax return, not the one that's going to print, but the one in Lacerte that's telling me who actually worked on it. And then, we have who's reviewing it and then also who's signing it, which is almost at this point, it's either our tax manager or myself. I'm going to put my email address in there. And then on the right side, some of it is just, basic information, but most of it is for state, not federal. So the jurisdiction, and, you would put in if you're under a specific jurisdiction, our CAF number. So the CAF number is the centralized authorization file number. It's a 9-digit number. It is, again, issued by the IRS the first time a tax professional files a power of attorney. And so in the future, if we have and get that CAF number, when we call into the IRS, they always ask for it. And if they ask for it, then it saves you from giving them a lot of other information. So you want to get a CAF number, and you want, the first time you call in, you want to, write it down, keep it somewhere, because you're going to need it a lot. And then license number. So I'm in California, so my license number is through the CalTax, and now I'm questioning that. It is through the state of California, and so that's where I get my license number. And then you can see to the right of that, it says in New York, you need to put in a number if you're in New York. And then also in New York, underneath that is another piece of information that New York wants, and it's going to be basically my designation here. So in other words, I'm in California, my designation here is CPA. I put that in that box, and then I am allowed to do New York tax returns. But in New York, they have their own set of rules of who can and cannot do tax returns. So you need to make sure that you're choosing from the drop down of what you are, and New York will then decide when they get a return from you if it's allowed or not. And then also there is, underneath it, that again is for if you're filing 1040s or 1041s. And this is usually because you are paper filing instead of e-filing, which is frowned upon in most cases, but there are always the exceptions. All right, so this again just sort of goes over what we just talked about. So we have our answers that we answered, and then we have here manage and invite users. So I'm going to actually jump into Lacerte so that I can show you what it looks like on the bottom half of the screen. But before I do that, I want to just mention what the top half is actually what happens when you log into your Lacerte using my account. So you go to Lacerte.com, and then there's a my account. And when you're in my account, that is when you're going to set up your users. So you're going to set up whoever's on your staff that's, you want them to be able to get into Lacerte, and you send them an invite through there. And so that's the first step. Then let me get into Lacerte. Give me a second. So in Lacerte, we go to settings. You see her up at the top where it's on settings, and then you can see that there's primary options and options. So primary options is where we can set defaults for everybody. So if you are using this and you are a firm, you have 2, 3, 4, however many employees, then you want to set the options for everybody, or some of the options for everybody. But then there's also options that you want to set just for whoever is logged in. And so they're a little bit different. And, you always want to start with the primary options, because those are the things, as I said, that are for everybody. And so I'm going to click on primary options, and you can see that this looks like the screen that we looked at. Let me see, make it bigger. There we go. This looks like the screen, well, if we went to preparers or info, but you would be able to see exactly what we looked at. But here are the rest of the tabs. I'm going to show you the one that was on the screen a minute ago from the slides. But here we have default rights, and we have me. And this is the trustee rights. And I'm going to run through all of these, sort of quickly, because we don't have, as I said, that much time today, but I want to make sure we do get through everything. So trustee rights, you can see that there's a lot of different things here on the right that I can say someone can or can't do. Now, obviously for me, as the owner of the firm, I can do anything I want. So I have them all checked. But let's say that this default rights was somebody else. Well, there's certain things I don't want everyone on my staff to do. I don't want anybody to go in and adjust user options, or for somebody else, or I don't want them to adjust user options here. I don't want someone to maybe do the rep access, the REP, remote entry processing, because I don't want them to make a decision when I want to use up one of my, the rep access that we pay for. So, everybody has a different an account with Lacerte, and so for me, we pay for a certain number. Well, I don't want to use up one of the numbers on somebody, somebody's cousin, or whatever. I want to make sure that we only do remote entry processing, or we call it, rep, for clients that are of my firm and that I'm willing to pay for. So that's one thing. The other thing that's really important, in my view, is one of the most important things here, is pro forma. So what pro forma means is that, let's go back to 2022. In 2022, we prepare tax returns, and we're done with tax season, and we're download 2023's tax program, and it asks me, do you want to pro forma 2022 over to 2023? And what that means is, do I want to take all of my clients from 2022, bring their information over into the 2023 program, and then have everything in there so that it has their name and their social and their address, and it'll show previous year information. And that's great. I want to do that one time, and only one time. But if somebody goes in, let's say, and they're in 24 and they're early in the year, and they're going to start putting a few things in that they have. So they go in and they, enter some information. And then somebody goes in and says, okay, I'm going to do pro forma. Not their job. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know that it's already been done. They do that. And everything that was put into the 2024 program for any clients, it gets wiped out. So now we have to start all over again. So there's only actually me, and I do it because I don't want anybody messing anything up. I am the one who does the pro forma every year. It makes me feel better to know nobody's going to mess anything up. I mean, do I have staff that can do it? Yes. Do I want them to? No. It just gives me comfort to know that I'm the one who did it and nobody else is going to touch that. So I take this right away from everybody by unchecking it. So I go through the list here, and then I uncheck pro forma for everybody. And then I can do the same thing with any of the stuff here, any of these things that are listed. So trustee rights is really important. And it's one of those things that people don't even know what it is, so they don't even click on the tab. Another thing here is setup. And setup is actually, where your data path is. And you can see here, my data path says says demo data. And underneath that is the shared file for K1s. And, this is what, so I have demo data when I'm showing you guys, because otherwise it's going to show you my clients, which, I'm not willing to give that list away. Sorry. So we do demo data. And this is where I can choose that. And then, so I have Lacerte update notification. I could have it enabled, or I can have it disabled. So I'm not going to run through every single one of these because there's a lot of them, but I want you to see some of the things that you can do. You can use a default letter folder or a default invoice schedule. You can have sub-client additions, and you can see, put it in this first available slot, or, have it, there should be an option there, pen to the end. Show form help icons in the form tab. I'm just jumping through some of these so you can see the types of things. Input method is interactive, or when I first started using the program, it was actually batch, which was where you had a form that had numbers, and the number was equal to the field that you're in. And then you would sort of like cells in Excel, and then you would input from that input form, which was just numbers, and that's how it would look on the screen. It was actually, a long time ago, but that's still an option for people that have been using it for years and didn't ever want to change. I can have this automatic detail saved, and I can set the time. So in other words, one of the things that I think is great, and one of the things that I think is annoying, is that as I'm inputting information, I don't have to hit save ever, because it'll save. But you can see that I have an option to save however minutes, so 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. And so therefore, if I'm inputting information, and I can go back, or I can get out of the return, and it won't save it if it's within that time limit. So if I mess something up, then I can go, get out and come right back in, and it won't have saved it. But sometimes then it's like, okay, well, I needed it to save it, and now it's 5 minutes, and so I usually have it set pretty low, because I don't usually mess up too bad. But just in case, it's one of those options where if you're just learning how to use it, you might want to set it at, okay, I want it for 10 minutes so that I can get out and come back in. And anyway, so that's something that's sort of nice. Automatic client numbering, you can have it turned on or off. So if you want the program to default to its own client number, you can set that how you want. Display total number of clients. I like to have that. It shows up in the bottom, when I'm working on bottom right, when I'm working on clients, or I'm looking at the list of clients. I like that, so it shows me, but not everyone needs to see that. So I can say, not to display it. Either way. The complete return, the printer, I'm going to talk about the printer in a little bit. I want to go over that more in detail. We have where we can set up passwords. I'm going to click to status. Now, this is very nice. Right now, there's 5 statuses. I use this for every stage of preparing a tax return so that any of us can look at a tax return and see that we are waiting for client information. We're waiting for tax forms. I'm doing this early February. Not all the tax forms are out yet. It's complete, waiting to be signed. It's been signed and it needs to be filed. It's been filed, but we don't have a confirmation yet. So I have all of those things filled out. Now, I do them in order of process. You can do them alphabetically or however you want, but once you put one in here, you can't move it somewhere else. You'd have to, sort of cut and paste. But and you hit modify to change it. But this is really important, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. But you definitely want to use statuses, in my opinion. Interest rates, this will get us the current interest rates for wherever we are, and the current rates. Sometimes you'll need that to because the return is being filed late and there's penalties, and this will and interest, and this will figure it out for you. We'll talk about the items to print in a little bit, and then here's some more defaults. And this one is, I think, has a lot of the things that you really should go through that you wouldn't have thought about. Allow the prepare IRS discussion. Yes, well, if it's set to no, it doesn't automatically put the information in. If it's set to yes, then when I call the IRS, I can say, I'm the designee on the tax return. Here, here's my information, and then I don't have to have a power of attorney most of the time. It's the IRS we're dealing with, so no promises. The prepared name on 1120s, and so we can default to that. And right now I'm in the S Corp module, so this is saying 1120. Then 1120S. Form 4562, and it can give me, when applicable, or it can, force it. Rounding, do I want to round it $1 or $10? We set that up. Schedule L and M1, I can have when applicable, or I can force it. So you can see that there's a lot of options that will save me time when I'm doing input. And so I don't even have to think about them because they're here. But if I didn't know they were here, then I would be reading every single line, on a tax form that I didn't need to, because I already know what options are there or not. So it's really great to go over this with your employees in a training session. That's what I do. Okay. I want to talk about, let me see where we are. Give me a second, because I want to talk about the printing. So I'm going to move into the printing, and then I might again go backwards, but I want to show you since I'm here. So here's the items to print. Now, I don't print the prepare review or the prepare file copies because I don't even print them to PDF anymore. Because when we're doing our review, we do our review in Lacerte, and we go to forms to look at the return, and then we put a green check mark next to everything that we've verified. And then if it's not checked or it's not green, it can be red if something has changed after I've reviewed it. Then I know I need to go back to it and fix it. So I don't use these two things, these two types of files or returns. I do always take a client copy, and I do a government copy. Now, the client copy, when I send the client a copy to for them to sign, when we do e-signature through Lacerte, then they're going to get a copy themselves. So I don't need to worry about sending them one, but I do put one in my file. So I want to have a copy of the return that was sent to the client, especially if something gets changed in Lacerte. Well, it shouldn't, because the file should be locked after it's signed and everything's done. But just in case, this way I have a clean copy in my file in our server. The other thing is the government copy. I want to make sure I have that also, so I know what was sent to the government. Now, there's a little trick with that. I'm going to click on it and show you the little trick here. So right here, you have federal form copies for state. Oh, no, that's not the one. Hold on. It's at the end, so I thought that was the end. Oh, here we go. Only e-file forms in complete return. Okay, now we have to think about that. Do I want only the e-file forms in the complete return? So in other words, when I go to print the complete return, do I only want the e-file forms that the client has signed, or do I want the entire return? So when I first read this, you're thinking, yeah, I want it, but that's not what it's saying. It's like, no, I want the return. So it's backwards. So here you want to say, no, I want to print the entire return. And so that's where, this is a little tricky on the government or even just the client file or whatever, because if you did it for the client, you would still only get the signed e-file forms. You wouldn't get the whole complete return. Now, the other thing that you want to see here, I'm going to go just to client, is that this is all that can be printed. And you can print it in this order, or you can print it in whatever order you want. And all you've got to do is say, okay, I don't need the client invoice, so I'm going to uncheck that. But I do want the client letter. And I want the client letter to be the first thing, but I don't need the separator sheet. So I'm going to uncheck that, and then even this one here. So the first thing I want to show up is the client letter. So that's checked off. And then there's the tax summary and general information. But I like the general information first. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to click on it and drag it up in front of tax summary. And so now you can see that I've got client letter, general information, and then tax summary. And I can do that with anything here. I can click on it or uncheck it, and then I can move it. And that's the order that it'll go in. And you can do that with the client copy, the government copy, prepare review, or prepare file. So we have a lot of options on how to print and what order they're going to be in. So I think that is something that, again, you want to preset. Because if we don't do that, then when I send out the client copy, they're not getting the letter. Well, the letter tells them how much to pay. Yes, they could look at the tax return and try and figure it out, but good luck that most of your clients know how to read it. So I like the letter that says, send a check for this amount, and then, send it to here or pay it electronically or whatever it is. And so I think that that should be the first thing that they see. You might think differently, but that's fine. That's the thing is, you can do it however you want it done. And so that's what we can do, here. All right, I'm going to stop sharing Lacerte. Well, yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to continue in the printing, and then we'll go through the slides afterwards. So now, if I apply changes before exiting, it's going to make the changes, and then it's going to kick me out of Lacerte because it's going to say it has to process them. So I don't want to change anything. This is a demo file I use. I'm going to say no because I don't want to get kicked out and have to get back in. But what I want to show you is, let's go to this client. These are all made up. Let's open it. Okay, and now let's say I want to print. So I'm going to come here to print, and I'm going to say I want to print the tax return. And yeah. Okay, hold on 2 seconds. I forgot to get rep access. And so what I'm going to do, and this is a little trick that you should know, is I'm going to make these numbers all nines, 9999999. And the reason I do that is so that when it goes in for my bill, it does not charge me for rep access. So that's just a little trick to know. So I'm going to say, oh, you don't have rep access. I'm going to transmit now to get rep access, and we'll hope it works. Let's see, because not, then we'll have to go to, are you not going to work? Oh, wait, I think it did it. Okay, so now let's try this again. We're going to go print, tax return. There we go. All right, so this is what pops up when we're going to print a tax return. Now, this is again set in default. I can say I never want these things to print. And so, that was an option when we were in the settings I showed you. And so it's not going to do a prepare review copy or a prepare file copy. But I do want to have to PDF the client copy. It's just a little font warning. And I want the government copy. And again, I want it to PDF. And you can see it popped up with, I can password protect the file if I want. And that the password can be set up again in those settings. And then I can also mask Social Security number if I want. Now, of course, I can't do that for the government filing copy because the government sort of needs that when they get the return. But I can have these checked off, and it's going to go to PDF. And then I have settings here that, don't show me again, that will pop up on a completely different screen just to make it harder. There we go. Okay, so this popped up, and I can tell it if I was going to print up to paper, what printer to use, and also if I want it to be watermarked or not. So I can choose that here. I'm going to cancel this. And now the other thing that's really awesome is I can say, okay, this was a complete return, but I also can say that I want a partial return. And what this does is it allows me to print just certain forms. Now, these are all the forms that are optional that, when you're doing an 1120. And if it should, which it's not, it should highlight, bold the ones that are actually part of this particular return. So it's not working, but that's okay. That's just sometimes when you have, your screen sharing and things like that, things don't work. But normally what you would see is that, okay, there's an 1120 and pages 1 through 5, and these would be bold. And I can check each one of these off. So you see how I can check them off right here? And it will check off just the ones I want to print. And when I can do this for US, and if this return had a state, it would also give me the option to do it for the state. And then when I go to print, whether it's printer, PDF, whatever, I can email it. I can just click OK, and it's going to print however I want to where I want, and that's it. So it gives me that option to pick particular returns. I can also do government filing copy. So if I just want the government filing copy, you see it brought me back here. I can do city and state. So if I just want the state return, I can do it here and, choose this again, the same things. So you can see that when I'm printing, I have not just these options, but I have that whole setup screen that I can say, this is how I want things to be done. Okay, 2 things that I want to show you. When I'm here on the clients, this is where we talked about status. So when I'm here, I can click on this client status, and I can choose if I want to see just a specific status. So in other words, if I just want to see clients that have been pro forma'd, then the information came from the previous year to this year, I can click on this, and it will just give me the ones, and you might see that there's none here, but it would give me the ones that are pro forma'd. I can check on info pending, and it would do the same thing. Now, something's got to be done here. Let's see, of course, oh, here we go, final. So you see the here status, I'm sort of circling around it up on top here, right? And I can see that all of these are final. And so let's say that we had the status of, info pending. I'd be able to click on the info pending, and it would just give me the ones that are pending so that I knew, okay, these are the ones I need to work on because this is my job. So this filter is really, really helpful. I can filter by preparers also. So I can say I want the info pending just for my clients, and have it filter for that. So this is really nice because I'm able to just get the ones that I want, not everybody. So using those statuses, as I said, and using like the whole list is really great because then I can really, filter down into the ones that I need, just the ones that I need. So that's why I wanted to take the time to come back here and show you. The other thing I wanted to say is that there is some other defaults when we talk about printing and such. And I'm here, you can see at the top under general, and here is invoice letter and filing instructions. and also customer client letter. So I can go into these and I can change things. So I'm going to, right here is an override screen. It tells you use this screen to override the client letter for this, the client letter for this client only. And then, it tells you to make sure you save it. So I can come in here and say, I don't know, encloses your 2024 federal S corporation income tax return. And because I know this is going to be emailed, make sure to keep a copy of this file or this PDF or something like that. I can make it say whatever I want, and I can have this default as, to everybody, or I can have it in here set up for just this client. And then I can, print it here, and I can also say, use this letter. And then you can see also, well, you can't probably see this, but it says save letter. So I'm able to come in here and customize this to whatever I want. And it's the same thing with the invoicing. Is I can set up, the client invoicing if there's a certain fee that I want to have in there. If there's a different client letter, I can have choices of the different client letters. And then if there's a transmittal letter, and then, filing instructions. So you can see that there's different things that I can do when I am printing invoices, letters, and, etc. So I wanted to show you those two things because I think it's easier to see them here. Okay, so this is where I just showed you, and then here is that client letter and building, and talking about how we can customize and edit client letters. And then we're going to move on to the Lacerte menu, which is basically what I just showed you, adjusting the user options. That's what we talked about. Selecting tax type. Now, selecting tax type is all the way up here under client. If you click on that on the left, then it gives you which module you want to use. And, so it could be individual, S Corp, C Corp, partnership, whatever. I can also, when I am on the first page of the client return, so once I choose one of these clients, the first page, I'm going to assign the preparers. And we talked about changing the client status. And also, with the one thing we didn't talk about was e-filing returns, because I'm not going to really get into detail on that. But here you have e-signature, and you will be on this screen, highlight the client, and then you can come up where, again, the drop down is e-file, and you can choose to, get the signature from here for e-filing. So if you want to request a signature through the e-signature program, you can do it here. And you can also do it from the e-signature screen. And, you can have it set so it'll email you when somebody signs, so that now it's time to go in and, save the form, and then also to actually e-file the return. So these are some other things that you can do from these tabs at the top. Also, the table of contents, which is when you are going into the first screen on the detail, then, or on the on the detail, then you're going to see where you can put in the if the file is going to be e-filed or not, and assigning the preparer, etc. Okay, so these are the things that we covered. We talked about the EFIN registration. Remember, you have to get that through the IRS and match it, with Lacerte. So you got to send it into Lacerte. Our firm identifiers, so that it tells the program who we are. Our preparer information, the manager and invite, to manage and invite users. So that's where we go, so that Lacerte knows, okay, these are the people that are allowed in Lacerte. They're going to be using the same login they would use if they're going into QBO, but it's tied. It'll be tied also to Lacerte, so it would be their same account. I have a really old account, so I actually don't use my email address as my username. So mine is unique, but that doesn't happen with everybody. So it's important to make sure you know how to log in and that you're using the same login for both. We talked about the print settings. We talked about the letters and billing and how we can customize those. and then of course the Lacerte menu. So if you're looking for more free training and resources, just so you know, I do a few of these, so you'll get to listen to me again. I don't know if that's good or bad, but up to you. And so different things is we have the Educational Center, and this has helpful product information, leadership training, industry news. You can browse the full list of training and education resources, and it's all in one place. And so that's pretty cool. There's the live and recorded webinars, virtual conferences, which are really fun. It's like going to a real conference, but you're doing it sitting on at your desk with your computer, and that's really fun to do. You know, you get to pop in and out of the different rooms, and you get to, there's booths that you can go to and talk to people. So the virtual conferences are fun, and you get CPE usually, so that's really nice. There's self-paced modules. So if you're going through and listening to this and you say, wait, I need to hear that again, or, you know, I need to, you know, just listen to it a couple times so I know exactly how to do it, or I want to follow along, you know, whatever that is, you can, you know, pace this webinar if you're listening to the recording by slowing it down. So in whatever format you're listening to. So there's that, or speed it up. My daughter listens to things at 3 times. My ears don't work like that. I can't hear that fast. So, you know, you can do that too. You can slow it down or speed it up, whichever you need. And then there's important articles that are really helpful. You know, it seems like any day of any year, there's something new. And so, you know, if there's articles about it, we can, you know, be on top of things and listen. And you'll get that by going to accountants.intuit.com/training/. There's also the Tax Pro Center, and here's where you can read articles on what's important and trending in the tax and accounting industry. And that's, you know, again, the accountants.intuit.com/tax pro center /. Another great place to, you know, get information. Support and community. So there is the Intuit accountant support. Here you could get answers to tax and product questions from Intuit accountants. So these are people that, you know, are with Intuit, but they have the experience, they had the education, and they know how to answer the questions because they understand it. And we can also access and search directly through program guides and resources. And that's through accountants.intuit.com/support/en-us. So another great place to go. And because I'm not done yet, there is exploring the community. You can post your product and workflow recommendations. You know, I like to share what I've learned, and this is a place to do that. You don't have to be an expert in everything, but if you find something that's like, this is so cool, I want to share it with somebody, you can go onto this format into the community and post it. And, you know, I always think, like, you know, if I'm sitting in a classroom and nobody raises their hand when a question is answered, or, you know, they say, oh, okay, does anybody have questions? And everyone's like, you know, no. And a lot of us are sitting there thinking, oh, nobody has this question because it's a stupid question. Or, you know, nobody has this question because nobody cares. Usually it's because half the other people in the room who probably have the same question feel the same way. They don't want to look stupid. They don't want to, you know, look like they're ignorant. They don't want to, you know, ask a question that nobody's interested in the answer. But but it is usually a valid question. So the nice thing about, you know, posting things is you think it's important. There's probably other people out there that think it's important too. And so you can go ahead and post here and not feel like, oh, nobody cares, because you're not going to know if anybody cares or not. So you go ahead and post it. You know, you're most likely helping somebody. You know, the other thing is that you're connecting with experts and, you know, tax professionals like you. And you know, you can find people to talk to. You can, you know, get inspired by other people. You know, again, you could ask those questions that you wouldn't ask somebody face to face because you're maybe embarrassed. So the community is a great place to go, and that's you know, accountants.intuit.com/community/. So again, another place that, you know, Intuit gives us to help us with our careers, it helps us with our businesses. It's just, again, finding answers to things that we don't know. Sometimes it's finding things that you never thought to ask, but it's there. So I think that, there's just so much that Lacerte does for us as accountants that is just really beneficial and really helpful. And so I hope that, everything that we've gone over today has been helpful in learning how to, set up the program and how to begin using it. Because as I said, there's just so many things that to learn. This is just the beginning. This is just one webinar of many. And, the more you attend, the more you learn about the products. And what I find after doing this year after year for different of the different webinars is that people that have been using it for a really long time still have questions because they haven't taken the time to go through every single screen and every, single drop down and all of that. And so, they just don't know what they don't know. And I say that a lot, but it's true. And, one of the other things that I love about the software is that in the software, I'm going to actually share it really quick again, because I have a few more minutes. There's, all kinds of help in here. So you have here is a search that'll give you a general, like a Google search, so I could ask questions here and click on search. This is up the top right here. There's the find. And this is great because I can actually find an input field, input for a form. I can find user entered text, which is pretty cool. So I know I put an answer in somewhere, but where the heck did I put it? Then I can put it in here and it'll show me where I inputted, what screen I inputted on. So that's really, really helpful. And then, I can have my entries assigned to federal or state if I have a state here. That's really helpful. So a lot of the things on here are, they're here to help us. They're here to give us information. You have help up here and it tells you all the different types of places to look for help. We have resources and, new user welcome center, data conversion info, my account, Lacerte training, Lacerte webinar. So you can see that there's, Lacerte is all about that, is making sure that, we can use this to our fullest. Here's where, I didn't tell you the difference between the primary options and the options. So the primary options, as I said, was really for everybody, to make sure everybody's on the same page. The options are the things that can be different for everybody. And you see it came right to fonts and colors. Well, this one was not under the primary options. So I just wanted to show this to you that, we can set up around fonts and highlight colors, and etc. So anyway, I'm going to stop here. And I want to thank you all so very much for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you at another one of these webinars. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Thank you so much.
That's it. You've got the setup locked in. Now your team understands their roles, your print defaults are finalized and correct, you have visibility into your workflow status, and you won't need to rebuild anything next season. Want to maintain this momentum? Visit accountants.intuit.com/training for webinars, articles, and additional resources to streamline your operations and enhance your value to clients. Let's keep building.